I wanted to share some perspective too with you about everything, and that drives me absolutely batshit crazy when I started learning how to do things. And let's go to let's create a new product. Can we? God damn it. Let's create a new project. Like, how the fuck do we do that in here? Like, I don't want any of this. I don't want anything to do with readme.txt. I don't want that. See, look at this. This fucking IDE is like, how do we start a brand new project? Like, there's no like file. There's nothing in that goddamn window about starting a new project. Like, what the fuck? See, if I don't want anything to do with like the former thing that had opened, then I want to start something brand new. Like, okay, this is what drives me crazy, and these kinds of things are what drive me crazy about, you know, about these goddamn IDEs. It's like, you want to do something like this, and you have to dig into it to find what you're doing, where you're going. And I'm not saying it wasn't like this on the command line at all. You had to go into the man page and look at what the output option for what you were trying to do was, but that was easier, to do on the fucking terminal than this shit, navigating all these goddamn fucking menus rather than just figuring out how to toggle some option by reading the fucking man page. Is compared to this is awful. Like, if I just want to start something new, like what I would do in, no folders open, so fine, let's open a folder, like the source, let's new folder. See, look at this. Just touch, the touch command here, much easier. Like rename. All this menu digging takes time, just to, alright, select folder. There, now we have a folder. Trust the authors of all, you're fine. Yes, trust the authors. Yes. New file. God damn, see, look at that. That is a fucking pain. Okay, new file. No, not Python. Where's my C? New file in C. Ugh. I'm going absolutely crazy here. New file. No, see, I don't want a Python file. Select a language. Select a language. There we go. Finally. All right. Do you want to install the recommended GCC extension pack extended? Yes, I do. God damn it. And this is probably going to take an hour and a half to actually do and get this shit up and run. Pre-release version is available. Would you like to switch to it? No, I would not. I don't want the bleeding edge of shit. Like, no, thank you. All right, now all that, and then let's hello world and see. Just start, and with the copy and paste, don't need the fucking actual comments, so just let me show you my problem and issue. Okay, I'm not trying to screenshot anything. Wrong button, press delete. Okay, now hello world. Okay, complete the configure IntelliSense. What the hell is IntelliSense? Like, like, what am I doing here? And what is the include studio.c? Let's, okay, yeah, see, do you see the nightmare that I'm having already? Like, I don't know what the fuck IntelliSense is. Select another compiler on my machine. Help me. Do not configure. Select another compiler on my machine. Like, where, like, how do I do that? Where the fuck, where the compilers be? How do I get one? And Windows launch. How do I get this fucking program to, open launch program does not exist. So, there's a launch.json file. All right. So, to customize the run and debug, create a JSON file. So, we need to be able to, configure all of this shit properly, just to get the run function actually up and running on this at all. Just to be able to actually test the code by getting it to actually execute and everything and get things compiled and test the executable on all of it. And, I realize that you've been here for a while now, 5 minutes of your time and everything, but if you're actually looking for input from somebody that's interested in learning how to do this kind of thing, this is input. I mean, why is this not why did Visual Studio Code not come out with this stuff pre-configured for the end user? Why is it that I have to go through the trouble at the end of the day of actually configuring everything to execute on my system whenever I run an executable on my system? I just point and click, on the actual, like, the link file, and it will go, yeah, see, look, that was me opening Double Commander. It's that fucking simple, but the moment I want to write my own program, I have to go over here to Visual Studio Code. And if I push the run button on the damn thing, the run button doesn't work, without, being configured, and, I try to set it up to use GDB. No, it doesn't use GDB. So what the fuck am I supposed to do to get this thing to actually run the fucking program that I just set up just to fucking test a fucking, a fucking a very basic C program? And, this nightmare of using VS Code, and getting everything up and running is, I think, one of the reasons why so many developers prefer, GCC. Because in this case, and I'm gonna print this on the screen, so let me hope that my notepad is actually visible, in this, right? Let's hope the full screen. Let me see how much of it. No, it I can't believe the way that it's displaying to people right now. So let's open. Let's try to these menus, but compared to how this would function on Linux, how you that O toggle being for output. I'm displaying my thoughts on the screen here. So I'm saying, compared to how this would function on Linux, how you would do this on Linux is gcc world.hello gcc hello world.c, or gcc dash o gcc dash hello world.c o hello world. And then once you've compiled it, you would do, and the ampersand symbols, and, two of them in a row, hello world.c. Or you could simply do it like this: gcc hello world.c out hello world, and then a new line in the terminal. You would just send that command, and then you would just do and you would have your program tested and executed. That's how much easier it is to do that on Linux and the Linux side of on the thing. So if anybody asked me, what is it that you can do on Linux that's easier than on Windows, one thing that I would tell you is that despite the high learning curve of learning all the command line shit and how to actually do that shit on the command line and what all that shit may be about, some things end up being a lot easier to do on Linux. Now, you would use Nano or Vim to write this program, or to set it up on, and by this program I'm just referencing this little script here, which is
it tells it at the top, the first line tells it to include studio, the standard input output library .h, and then it just does, it declares a variable, it names it main, and then it goes into, you know, it so this is it declares the main function basically, which is the entry point, and it writes the print statement, printf. Now, if it were me writing this, I would not use printf here, because there's no reason to do that. To use that line, and and here I would use puts, but that's because I actually read up on shit. Although the compiler would probably, in most cases, would take note of this and just fix it for the user. As I've been told, there's no reason to use the printf function. Program here, you just use puts. It makes no fucking sense to use it. So, you know. So, an audit to that code, and let me pull it up, and hopefully it will display on screen properly by the time this gets to you. I'll probably have to look at this video before I upload it. Now, I'm not interested in the comments because I already know what all this shit does. So let's remove them, and just, everything's pretty infamous, so I would make. Yeah, yep, 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 and then return zero, which is already, the return zero statement's already there. So, pencil of world followed by a new line. Oh, well, there's no new line declared there though. Well, anyways, the whole thing is a lot easier to do, and this char message. Woo, this is a string to be printed. Puts message. That's cool. You made a variable out of it. And then oh, that's funny. Yeah, now, whoa, nice, nice that how that code was constructed. But anyways, I mean, this is way easier to learn how to do on Linux. You know, uh, if I were learning to write code, I at this point it's like, please, 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 if I take an instructional class in this, you know, start us off, and everything in the command line Linux. I mean, even if you tell people to put a fucking VM on their system to run it that way, I don't care. Just don't do everything in Windows. Windows makes everything a nightmare to set up on your local system to get to actually run properly. So if you ask me what it was that's easier, sometimes Linux is complicated to set things up. Diving into configuration files, figuring out, doing research to figure out what they all do and everything in order to test some experimental setup on Wine to get Wine to actually execute a Windows program. Nightmare that I don't want to deal with. That sounds like a bit of a stress headache that I'd like literally pay somebody else to deal with. But if I were just starting off, breaking my teeth learning how to code, do I want to do this on Windows? No. I mean, all our IDEs, like for instance, on this side of the equation, all try to pay some sort of homage to the bring your own perspective on things, and so they expect you to set up a path to execute the program whenever however you want to, and they put the burden on you, the end user, to figure out how you want this program to execute on your system and everything. Only the problem with that is that the end user might not know how to do that. They might not be familiar with JSON files, for instance. They might not have run across these JavaScript syntax, files, to know how to fucking write the file in the first place, to actually get GCC, not GCC, but I mean, fucking Visual Studio or Visual Code, to actually, run the fucking program that I just wrote. So, bursting this out of the fucking I need to go through a whole laborious process to install a completely different compiler on my system with MinGW and try to get at it with something like, oh, I don't know, what was the name of the shit that I did to have a basic, oh god, I forget. Sigwin, to get that up and running, on the system and everything, and I suppose I could maybe refer to the Windows subsystem out of the WSL and run it through that on Windows, but this is such bullshit. This is way easier to do on Linux than it is on Windows. GCC at the end of the day is a much simpler compiler. I mean, it's so much easier to do. I mean, GCC dash, GCC myprogram.c, dash O to declare the output of the file, and then you just tell it my program, and then you just do dot / my program to execute it. I mean, that's so much easier to do on the Linux side of the equation. Windows makes a fucking mess of it.